Are you looking for easier ways to connect to your Oracle databases? Then this is a session for you. Albert Rodriguez is going to share practical tips to make your work simpler and faster. We'll explore different methods to connect like TNS, Direct, and LDAP, and show you how to set up automatic connections and workspaces to save time. Whether you're new to Toad or just want to improve your daily workflow, this episode has plenty of useful insights to help you get more done and with less hassle. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to our Toad 101 series here. My name is Albert Rodriguez. I'm a solutions consultant with Quest. Today we're going to be talking about our Toad 101 series, and this is your episode 4, Mastering Your Oracle Database Connections. In today's series, what we're going to talk about is establishing connections, managing the connections that you establish, as well as streamlining access to your connections. And lastly, we'll talk about integrating workspaces. We will do a demo at the end of the series or this section, and you'll be able to look at what we were talked about as well. Let's start with establishing connections. There are 3 different methods that we can connect with inside of Toad for Oracle. That is a TNS connections, direct connecting into your environment, and using LDAP connections. When you establish your connections, we'll start with the TNS connections. This is where your TNS names are going to be coming into effect, and you'll be able to utilize that file. The TNS names basically has a bunch of addresses. Think about it sort of like a business card where it gives you the information of a person, where they live at or where their business is at, as well as their phone number and other information about them, right? Same thing with the TNS connections. It gives the information about the Oracle database that you're connecting with, the schema information and your actual connection to that database itself in that instance. So that is the information that you will be able to use within there in the TNS connections. The second type of connection is a direct connection. Maybe you don't have an entry inside of your TNS names, but it is a brand new server or new environment that I now need to connect to. So I'll be able to utilize the direct connection and enter my host name or my host IP and be able to enter the port information that I need to use, and as well as the service name if you're dealing with a newer Oracle environment, or if you're dealing with the old environment, you can also use your SID to connect to into that environment. Lastly, if your organization uses LDAP as credentials and to be able to organize and give you privileges to certain environments, you will be able to use LDAP connections within Toad and utilize that to be able to connect into your environment. In the direct connections, just like I mentioned, on the left-hand side, you see a TNS names entry. The direct connection is taking that information. So if you have, as long as you have your host information and your port number that you're going to be dealing with in that direct connection, as well as your instance name, you will be able to connect directly into that. It does not have to be in the TNS names. You could open up your TNS names and enter that information, but sometimes we just need to connect very quickly into an environment, maybe an environment that I temporarily have access for. So this is a good way of connecting to that environment without having to change your TNS names or a file. So let's look at managing those connections that now you have established. In in there, you can actually personalize each connection that you have. You can personalize it by connecting as. So if you have certain privileges that you have to deal with when you're making a connection, say sys DBA or sys operator, those connections can be connected as that type of user or that privilege in there. So you can name that connection. Normal by default is the defaulted way. Color coding, you can actually color code your connection so you can know what environment you're in. The alias, sometimes we have different names in our TNS names Aura that we can actually connect to. And here's a great example right above. If you look at the TNS, it's called Aura 18C. What does that mean? Well, I can actually change it and use an alias for that. Maybe that means production environment for the Albert environment. I can be very specific. That way I know where I'm actually at, and it makes more sense to me. I can also save my passwords. In the passwords, don't worry, it is encrypted. So in the password file, it is saved encrypted. Nobody's going to be able to open it up and just read and see what the password is. So those passwords are always encrypted. I can also set my environment to just read only. I can enter in there, no matter what my privileges are, I can protect it and only read. I can't do any changes to that. I can just set it as read only. Lastly, I am a former database administrator, and I had a bunch of entries into my logon. I had about 140 different entries that I logged into, but on a regular basis, I would only log into about 10 different environments. I could list them as my favorite and narrow down my connections to only look at those favorites and be able to utilize that. Color coding. As we mentioned, in your personalizing, you can actually color code the environment that you're dealing with. I tended to use blue for dev environment, yellow for a test environment, and red for production. It will quickly identify and show me where exactly I am. That's how colors can actually help in your environments in actually using the colors. You can see on the very top of my connection and on the very bottom, it'll put a bar and color code that bar to the environment that I'm at. For instance, in this example right here, I am in a test environment. Like I mentioned, I tend to use yellow for test environment. So that way I know it is a test environment. You can also look at the actual windows that we have, and I've made that a little bit bigger here, but it also color codes the different connections that you have. So I can very quickly know where I'm at. Right now, I'm in the editor for my test environment, but I also have a connection open that I can switch to. That is my my production environment, because it's red. I tend to use red for production. So very quickly, I can identify where exactly I am by just using colors. Another thing that we can quickly do is share our connections. Sometimes we get a new desktop or new laptop. And like I mentioned before, I was a former DBA and I had like 140 connections. I didn't want to upgrade my laptop. I didn't want to upgrade my desktop because I didn't want to enter all of those 140 different entries all over again. Well, Toad makes it very simple to share my connections. I could quickly export my connections and then import them. As you see right in here, in my export, I can select a file name and enter that file name and save it to where I need to connect to, or what my export of all my connections can be in there. I can also even save my passwords, and they're encrypted also, so I can actually include my passwords with those connections as well. Then I can utilize my import connection and just select that file that I just saved and be able to then import it into my environment and see all my connections automatically in there. So I'll be able to utilize that and make things very quickly. Not only can I do that with mine, maybe we got a new employee, a new team member in our organization. Why not help them out and get them the environment that you're connecting to, getting them those connections and being able to share with them. So you can actually share that file with them if you would like, and then they can go ahead and import it into their own environment. So saves time for people not to have to create all of those connections themselves. Next here, we're going to talk about streamlining the access in our environment itself. You can quickly connect to the actual instance that I want by using and utilizing the auto connect. In the auto connect, it's actually going to, when I launch my Toad, bypass my connection manager and be able to then connect to that environment that I selected. Now, I can quickly connect to, say, a dev environment that I normally connect to all the time. And that's the first thing that I'm always dealing, or that's an environment that I always have to connect to and have 90% of my work done there. I can quickly just bypass that. And with Auto Connect, it's going to open up and launch my Toad directly into that connection without me having to type in anything or select anything from that connection manager. It automatically connects me into that. So it'll help me and save me time in those instances right there. And we'll take a look at that during the demo as well. The next thing that we can actually do is also connect and kick off something that we normally do in a certain environment. Like I mentioned, I was a former database administrator. At the beginning of the day, I could quickly enter an execution script that I needed to create. Maybe what I needed to do is run a health check on my database in certain instances. So whenever I connected there the first time, or whenever I connected into it, it would run that automatically. So it would load those actual actions into that script, into that connection, and run it while I was actually doing something else. So it would kick off those jobs for me, and I didn't have to do it myself. So it saved me time. It saved me a process that I had to go in, automatically do it myself, or set it up to where I needed to then manually run these, or anything of that sort. If I have it in the execution action, it would automatically, whenever I would connect into that environment, kick off that action that I did. If it needs a parameter file, I can also select a parameter file and enter that parameter file for that environment as well. So very handy tool and something to really look at. These actions and these executables are actually coming from your automation designer. This is where you would actually set those up, and this is where you could create that process. As you can see in your automation designer, you'll have different things that you can do. You can do exports, imports, compare, do different outputs, even put logic in there, like an if then else logic. So it's very robust in setting up your process in there, and almost anything that you can think of can be utilized in the automation designer. So this is going to be very helpful. Again, this is where you would actually create the different processes that you need to execute upon entry into your connection. Next, we're going to talk about integrating workspaces. Sometimes we are dealt with, in the middle of doing something, I am now all of a sudden being tasked to do something else. We can actually switch environments very easily and pick up where we were left off once we're done with that task that we were given. And this is where workspaces come into play. I can save my environment of where I'm at without losing. I don't have to start all over again. I can always pick up for it. Or it may be certain environments that I connect to, right? I can set a workspace for my dev environment, and I can very quickly connect into that, automatically set the different connections that I want for that, and set it up into a workspace, maybe one for production. So I can keep all of my environments very different and stay in task. So workspace come in very handy. I can also have it to automatically save my last change or any changes that I'm currently at. So that way I don't have to manually save every single time if I want to. It can automatically do that. It can automatically load that environment as well for me if I needed to, or do both. Save it and load the environments for that within there. When you end up making a change or switching to that environment, it's going to ask you, do you want to close out whatever you're at or whatever you may have open and launch this new environment? And automatically anything that you had saved will load up in that environment itself. So let's take a look at how we're doing the workspaces, and also we'll recap with a demo. Okay, let's demonstrate by start with a recap. Like I mentioned, once we launch Toad, you will get the connection manager in here. This is where I would be able to add a login in there, edit any of these connections that I have, or even delete. We now have that delete button in there. So you can just highlight any of these connections that I have and delete them from that entry that I have in there. All right. My actual import and export are towards my right hand side, or if I've added a new one and I need to refresh my environment here, I can always refresh that. Again, in the adding a connection, you can also add multiple connections at the same time in there, or I can just add a single connection and be able to connect into here. What I'm going to also do in here is I'm going to show my auto connect. So I'm going to go ahead and select my prod as my connection in there, and we can see and utilize that connection there. But I've set it as auto connect. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and close my Toad environment and then relaunch it. So you'll notice how it actually bypasses my connection manager and goes straight to any of the ones that I have auto connect in there. So you'll see that it opens my connection there. It'll open up any of my tabs also that I have set up for that connection in there. So I'll be able to do that automatically. I can always go to my connection manager by going to my sessions in here and be able to go into my connections here. But I'll go ahead and close this out. Let's talk about the workspaces. The workspaces was right in here. Like I mentioned, let's say I am in this environment. I'm doing certain things in there, but this is the task that I was given to, but now I want to pick up where I left off the other day or yesterday or a couple of hours ago. I had saved an environment called Albert Prod Dev. You can see very easily and very quickly I can switch to that. It's going to ask me, do I want to go ahead and close any connections that I have now and open up that workspace that I actually saved. I'm going to say yes, and you'll see that now it's loading anything that I had in there. as well as maybe in the editor I had in here, I was working on a debugging script within here. So I can actually see that it loaded that up. Anything that I had on my screen or I had open, it will actually save for me. You can also see that I also had my automation designer in there, and I did it purposely because I did also want to go back and talk about that actions script. You can actually see the different things in the automation designer. The automation designer is right here with the lightning bolt. That is the actual button for my automation designer. But you can see the different things that I can do. I can do export, import. I can do comparisons, compare my schema, compare databases, even compare files in there, create a report, do diagnostics, like a health check, code analysis, or anything of that sort. But file management, I can even do utilities like an email, file management, like I mentioned, copy a file, open a directory, so on and so forth in there for that. Like I mentioned, this could be very robust to where I can actually put intelligence into my process. So I can do a while loop or repeat until, if then else statement. So it's going to be very, very robust, and I can pretty much make it do almost anything that I would like to do. So it is a very comprehensive tool, a very diverse tool in there for it. But anything that I create in here are going to be able to be done in those actual execute upon login. So any of these that I have in there are going to be available for me. And you'll see that again, once I go into, say, a new connection in here, and I'm going to go add a file, you can see in my actions here, I can execute upon this action in here, and you'll see all of the ones that I have in here in my automation script are all loaded for me within here, and I can actually be able to use that. The only one that will not be able to be deleted is going to be that defaulted thing, that app in there for that, which is a blank profile in there. And there you have it, a little bit demonstration on how it works, how you can go from one location to another into environments by using Workspaces. So it take advantage about anything that you have going on and very quickly be more productive with your Toad connections themselves. And thank you. Now we will address you all's questions. Is there any questions from the audience in regards to our demo or this presentation in the series? But before we get there, I do want to mention that on October 22nd, my colleague Matt Fan will be presenting the next Skills 101 Toad series on the power of the Toad editor. Again, that is on October 22nd. And it's going to be conducted by my colleague, Matt Fan.